Hello, I'm Full Paragon, and this is your guide yet again to the Dark Goblin Arena in Konosuba Fantastic Days. Waluigi has returned, and he is even harder than he was last time. His attacks are going to hit harder, meaning that he can one-shot your characters with relative ease. The waves are more little minions, which means that this could be Railgun means the Redux. We'll talk about this more later. The boss tends towards single target damage, and will inflict an agility down on one character with his ult, provided they survive. His first move will deal AoE damage and has a chance to seal, which means no skills or ults for 5 seconds, which is roughly one turn, so plan around that. On turn 3, he will deal a physical attack down for 12 seconds, which means that physical teams are probably screwed this arena unless you can get him to skip that turn with agility down. The first team we'll go over is one of the two mage teams I'll showcase, and this is probably the better one, although it is less memey. Maid Rin is absolutely the best unit to run here, and she can provide a ton of damage and buffs with her gauge up and magic attack buff. I will note that you can replace her with Christmas Wiz, but she's going to do better specifically in light arena. The placement of Aru and Union on your team depends on if you are using Aru's light ult. If you are not, Union Front is probably the way to go. Megumin can easily handle the wave clear on her own, and her explosion is going to be great here for a little boost of damage on the boss. I think you are going to want Danmachi coming in last to give your team a last second gauge fill, and she can do a lot of light damage all by herself. Run her original out, as she's not going to be long enough to use the 1.5. Alright, this is the meme team. The thing is, if you run 2 gauge fills units along with ReZero Megumin, she's gonna be able to get enough gauge to reliably use her railgun relatively quickly. Maid Rin and Christmas Wiz, or Danmachi Aqua, can grant 40% gauge fill, which combined with the 6 enemies that you can feed Megumin, will grant a ton of gauge to her. The rest of the characters will all deal not inconsiderable damage, and Wiz can keep the damage down and provide that ever-important Tier 3 agility debuff and magic defense debuff. Again, this is a meme build, but the giant railgun hits really can help out a score. You can try Danmachi Aqua instead of Christmas Wiz, but I just don't think it will work as well because of the lack of synergy between the mages and Danmachi Aqua. Swap Union and Aru if you don't have Aru's light ult, and use 1.5 on Union for more of a damage boost. If she's last, it's more impactful to have her use the last second newt, as the first version of her first ult will deal more damage but doesn't have that buff. Alright, now the physical team. This is a really good team, but the boss unfortunately does that tier 3 attack debuff on his third turn, which means that physical is probably just worse than mages just on that, as the debuff lasts for 10 seconds, which is basically 2 turns. That said, you can definitely get top 1k with this team with a little good play and a little bit of RNG on your side. This is because the Danmachi collab was very kind to light physical, and Aqua and Eyes are pretty much required here. Their gauge up is awesome, and they both provide a tier 3 physical attack buff for your team, as well as having self tier 3 agility buffs. Aqua also has that incredible light super along with Iris. Iris's ult can even be used to heal your team. You should use her first ult and either the 1 or 1.5 version, depending on if you need more healing. There are a lot of agility buffs here. Like Cosma even has a tier 2 agility buff of his own. Other good options for this team are Arabian Dust and Arabian Chris. Both of them are quite strong, but I think this setup is just a little bit better, provided you have Snipe for Kazuma and are using maxed out versions of Aqua's weapon as well. As far as the welfare options in Light go, there's a pretty solid roster here. We have Onsen Megumin, who while nowhere near as good as ReZero Megumin, is good enough to get the job done here. Ninja Wiz just can't compete with Christmas Wiz or Maid Rin, and if you have Christmas Wiz, you should use her instead. But she's not a bad character at all, she just loses out to those better, higher rarity light mages. Both Princess Union and Welfare Light Aru are simply not as good as the 4-star versions, but they do work. Welfare Iris is also just a worse version of the 4-star, but if you don't have that, she works fine. Coming in last, she can deal a high amount of burst. Aru's light ult is also just better, but I assume welfare players don't have that one yet. That's the video. Thanks for watching. As usual, I will do a stream the day after this arena premieres at 2 hours after reset. I'll be doing arena, and I will be doing some polls for Maid Rin, as she is just too awesome for someone like me to pass up on. Hopefully we'll see you then, and good luck against Dark Goblin. Remember, if you're having problems, just remind him he's never getting into Smash.